How's it going, everyone? You got your co-hosts Jake and Sutton back for episode 13 of the Just Sayin Podcast. We're getting up there in episodes.
I know.
It's crazy. Today we're going to preview week 4.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh, the season's already flying by. We're already going to play Auburn. No, it's week 5. It's week 5. We're already going to play Auburn this week. So, I mean, I know they moved that game up into the schedule, but it's still crazy.
Week 5. Sorry, week 5.
Yeah. So we're gonna preview some for week 5. We're gonna give you some teams. We're still thinking of a name for it, but some teams who aren't playing well right now.
I don't think we can tell them
We're not saying that. We got some teams that are not playing well right now, but we think they're gonna rise to the top, and we think they're gonna be playing well by the end of the year. Could be vying for a conference championship, could be playing in the top 25, just somewhere along those lines. And then also the uh-oh segment is back. We got 5 teams who have from last week didn't play the best and have us saying uh-oh this week. So, I mean, Sutton, I know you got some news about the Alabama game. If you want to go ahead and kick us off, talk about that this weekend.
Yeah, so got another bad rumor around the Alabama football team today. Don't know if it's true yet. Just heard it on the message boards. So supposedly Terrion Arnold was carted off of practice either yesterday or today. It's kind of still floating out. Don't know if it's true yet. Obviously, this is all hearsay. We'll point that out first. Don't know if this is true. We'll find out on Saturday if he's at the game or not. But
let me ask, when did you hear about it though?
Literally like 30 minutes ago.
Oh, really?
Had a great day up until that. So, and obviously Terrion had a great game against Ole Miss. I think he had like 3 or 4 pass breakups and interception. He showed us what he could do, and Law wasn't there as a kick returner against USF. And obviously a player that was definitely on the up. And Trey Amos is going to fill the spot. I'm pretty confident in Trey. I know he's got the capabilities to fill the spot for Terrion, but obviously you want to have your best guy out there, and that sucks that you can't have Terrion. But let's just hope it's all rumors, and number 3 will be on the field on Saturday. Certainly looking forward to it. I'll be there in Starkville to watch Alabama take on Mississippi State. Currently a 14.5 point favorite, and that's kind of been a kind of a normal throughout the week. The line hadn't moved at all, so it sounds like the Vegas bettors are pretty stable on that line. And that's kind of bizarre to me because I think, and what Saban's also been saying, I mean, just watching Mississippi State play and watching Alabama beat Ole Miss, I would be much more willing to say Ole Miss is a better team than Mississippi State. But in press conferences this week, Nick Saban has said this is the toughest team we've played so far besides Texas. He said that multiple times. He said it Monday. He said it Wednesday. He said it today on the Pat McAfee show. So I don't know if he's using this as motivation. I don't know what he's using it for. I don't think Mississippi State's better than Ole Miss. He's going as far to say as they're more talented than Ole Miss. I definitely don't think they're more talented than Ole Miss. But if he watches all the tape, I watched some of the tape, but I definitely am not Nick Saban. I'm not a 7-time national championship winner, just a fan of the winner. So maybe he knows what he's talking about, and I'm sure he does. But I think Alabama is going to go into Starkville. They're going to rally around that second half that they had last week against Ole Miss, and they're going to win this game by around 21. I think they covered the line. Jalen Milroe is actually his first road start of his career. So we'll see how he came in, obviously, against Arkansas last year on the road, but he doesn't really have any road experience in meaningful time besides that. So it'll be interesting to see what he said in a tough environment. I mean, with the cowbells, it's pretty loud in there. It's going to be hard for the offense to hear him. So there'll probably be a snap count. So it'll be interesting to see how he reacts. See how in kind of the same way Georgia's been all year. I want Alabama to come out on fire. Georgia and Alabama both have kind of stagnated on offense in the first half this year. They've been more second half teams. So I'm excited for the game. Think Alabama's going to do well. Just really want to see a good first half on offense.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll give a spoiler to talking about the Georgia game. I think that trend continues for both Alabama and Georgia. You mentioned it. Starkville, decently tough place to play. I related it to kind of like the Gators, where, I mean, what's their stadium called? Ben Hill. It's not one of those stadiums that jumps off the page. Maybe Ben Griffin. That might be right.
It's Ben Griffin or something like that. I've been there. The place is loud.
Yeah. Not one of those stadiums that jumps off the page, but whenever you have a good opponent, I can't talk. Good opponent coming there, Give me a little bit scary for that team, and especially because Jalen Miller, I didn't know that he's going into his first road start
Good
uh,
start.
ever. When he came in against A&M last year? Was that on the road?
A&M was a home game last year. He
It
started
looked like it was on the road. So I mean, it's going to be loud there. I think Jalen Milroe struggles in the first half. Their leading receiver, Jermaine Burton, 8 receptions for 189 yards. I think their passing offense gets off to a slow start. But I mean, we've talked about it. Mississippi State's not a good team. I don't know why Nick Saban's saying they're a good team, the toughest team they've played outside of Texas. I don't think so. I think they're a bottom 3 team in the SEC. So I
Oh,
think they
sorry. And another nugget, our backup right guard, who's been Terrence Ferguson, who's kind of been battling for the starting right guard spot, is out. Our starting linebacker, our best player on defense, Deontay Lawson, is out. So Jahad Campbell and Tresman Marshall both are going to get the start up the middle there. And then left tackle has been kind of reopened back to a competition. Caden Proctor has not played well. So I would not be surprised to see Elijah Pritchett get the start at left tackle on Saturday. And honestly, I'm kind of looking for that. Not that I want it to happen, because honestly, I don't know if there is a solution at that position, but that's something just to watch out for. Sorry, I just thought I should say that. But
sounds like there's not going to be a lot of chemistry on the O line and maybe in the linebacker room there. So I mean that's why I think they get off to a slow start. But like I was saying, Mississippi State bottom 3 team in the SEC in my opinion, coming off 2 losses, really should have lost against Arizona too, and Arizona's garbage. But coming off of 2 losses, I think they make it a third. I think Alabama covers. This might be similar to last week where Mississippi State might be winning at half, but Mississippi State just is not good enough. I think their stadium and their fans keep it in it. But, they don't have the firepower. They don't have the coaching. They don't have anything to just keep it going.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty low scoring game at halftime. I mean, kind of, what's been going on for Alabama this year. If I had to give you a predict, I think Alabama will be up like 10-3 at halftime. But I think Alabama runs away with it in the second half, probably winning like 28-10 or something like that. Something pretty convincing. But I'm not really worried about Milroe per se. I'm more worried about our offensive line figuring their struggles out. And I've actually been happy to see that there have been so many people in the pass game get involved. I mean, we're playing like 9 different receivers at one time this year on offense, and we have a couple of them hurt. And we're getting our tight ends involved. And I think 12 or 13 different people have caught passes for Alabama this year, which is definitely not what we're used to, because we're used to more of having those 3 or 4 really dominant guys. And obviously you would want the rideouts. Like I would love to have Jalen Waddle and Smitty and Jerry Jeudy and Ruggs right now. That'd be awesome. But yeah, I mean, I liked our receiver room. I think they're fine. We just don't have the caliber player we've had. I mean, we've got a couple really good breakaway guys. Jermaine can break away and get downfield. We've seen Isaiah Bond do it. Amari Niblack's a mismatch. Kobe Prentice is a high volume catch guy that can catch a lot of passes. I trust him with the ball in his hands. Ja'Cory Brooks has been there, done that, but he hasn't shown up this year. So we've got proven talent and a lot of unproven talent. I like what we've got though. I think we just need to play more. We need to get more familiar with one another. Especially now that Milroe's been back inserted into the starting lineup. So I think Alabama, maybe it's a little spoiler alert for our new segment, but this is not the Alabama team you see on Saturday is not going to be the Alabama team you see week 12. I think this team is going to be much improved by week 12.
I agree with that. And, transitioning into my team, talking about Georgia, I think it's very similar with Georgia, where, I mean, a lot of people are calling this game with Auburn a trap game. I want to go as far as to say it's a trap game. If I had to pick one game on our schedule that looked like it, it would be Auburn, though, because, I mean, Carson Beck, he's going into his first road start, too, against, not a good Auburn team. Auburn is also really bad. Auburn sucks. But, I mean, it's Georgia and Alabama both always get Auburn's best, and especially now that they've separated those 2 games. We play Auburn in the beginning of the year. Y'all play them late. Both of us are going to get their best. And so Saturday, Auburn's going to come out, and I think this game is going to be very low scoring in the first half, kind of similar to you. I think it's 10-3, 10-6, 9-6, like it was against Ole Miss. So, I mean, the first half is going to be really slow. But I think, just like I said with Alabama, Auburn's not good enough, and this Georgia team is super talented. I think we put it away in the second half, and I think exactly like you, it probably ends up 28-10 or so. I think Georgia ends up barely covering, not by much though. I don't know. One interesting thing about this though is Dejon Edwards. I didn't know this. He is on pace to, if we play 14 games, he'll have 1,000 yards. Because right now he's at 184, but he's only played 2 games. I think people forget that he didn't play the first 2, and then he had over 100 yards against South Carolina. So I'm interested to see how our rush game does against their defense is pretty good. Auburn's, it's not great. Don't get me wrong; it's probably bottom half of the SEC, but I mean that's comparing it against the best defenses in college football. So their defense isn't bad. They got some players up there. Want to see how the rush game does. Brock Bowers coming off a career game. It's crazy to call that a career game because he just has so many of them. He's so good. Funny story. He's in my class right now. He's in real estate investment with me, and he's exactly like he conveys himself in his interviews and everything like that. He's super shy, super timid. So, but he's coming off a career game, 120 receptions with a passing touchdown. This isn't part of my best bets, but I am hammering both his overs, 58.5 receiving yards and 0.5 rushing or receiving touchdowns. I think they target him a lot, especially because, like I said, I think we're going to kind of struggle in the first half, especially moving the ball. So I think we always go to our playmaker and try to get Brock Bowers the ball. And so I think our defense, after a slow showing against UAB, they come out and, this Auburn offense is atrocious. Peyton Thorne, awful, has 561 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I think he leaves this game with 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He's going to be awful. They're not going to be able to run the ball. I just don't see them being able to do anything on offense at all. So I could be wrong, but that's how I feel.
I think UAB's got the better offense than Auburn does. I'll be completely honest. I'm much more confident in Jacob Zeno than I am in whoever Auburn throws at quarterback. And I'll even throw this out there at you. I would be on the lookout for Holden Gariner to play in this game because I honestly think he's the best quarterback they have on their roster. Peyton Thorne obviously is not that guy. I actually went back today and I watched the A&M game. Dude, this guy, there is no way he should even be in the Power 5. He is awful. He is awful. And Robbie Ashford's worse at throwing, but at least Robbie Ashford has a huge positive to his game, which is the running game. But what is Georgia's trademark? What do they play to? The run. So that's going to be tough for him in this game. And it is a tough – and here's another way that you could think of, maybe they won't play Holden Gariner because it's Georgia. Why would you want his first major playing time to come against Georgia? But then again, the flip side of that is you're at home. It's going to be a rocking environment. We know this is Hugh Freeze's first time playing one of their big-time rivals, Georgia or Alabama. So Auburn is going to be rocking. That place has got voodoo magic. We all know that. It's just something different every time a team goes in there. I think Georgia's going to cover, though. I don't think this is going to be a problem. I wouldn't be surprised if they start off slow like we were talking about. And, Alabama and Georgia are in similar situations offensively. I would say they're in very similar situations offensively. The only thing that's different, in my opinion, is Georgia's has a lot less drama at the quarterback position. And Georgia's offensive line is much better. But, otherwise, I would say they're kind of in the same boat. They're still trying to find themselves on offense. Both of them have national championship caliber defenses. So you can see a lot of similarities between these two teams. Obviously, Alabama's got the loss against Texas. Georgia hasn't played anyone of the caliber of Texas. But we could be looking at these two teams, and, all odds are that these two teams face each other in Atlanta at the end of the year. And that game, if they play today, and that game in December, if that's what ends up happening, those two games will look completely different. I really don't know. Georgia would probably win today, but you never know what Alabama ends up looking like towards the end of the year, especially if you get some confidence rolling. So I expect Georgia to win this game. I expect them to pull away in the second half, just like you said. Get Brock Bowers involved. Run the ball a little bit more. I feel like Georgia's gotten kind of away from what they're really good at in the past, which is running the ball. And I get it. You don't have the stable running backs like you always had. They're a little banged up at that position. And you got the receivers on the outside, but it's very troublesome to me when you get too heavy on the pass for a team that has historically been a run-first team. And it may not end up being a problem, but I'd like to see Georgia run the ball a lot in this game, especially against an Auburn defense that's really not that special. Is the best thing about their team, but not that special.
The only reason I disagree with you there, yes, we've been very pass-centric this season. Carson Beck has thrown a lot. But the only reason I disagree is because when you look at the one team we've played, it was South Carolina, and we ran the ball for 190 yards. Our starter, Dejon Edwards, ran it for 118, and that was on 44 carries. So we ran it a lot against South Carolina. So I don't think we've got away from it too much. And that was also against, a good defense, a SEC defense. And also when our running backs were not healthy. Kendall was not 100%. Cash Jones wasn't even 100% that weekend. That's when Roderick Robinson got hurt. Dejon was finally back, and he probably wasn't 100%. So I think we do get back to the run a little bit more this weekend, and especially after we get Brock Bowers more involved.
Yeah, well, how about probably, in my opinion, could be the best game of the weekend, but it's happening on Friday. Tomorrow, the Utah Utes travel to Corvallis, Oregon, to take on Oregon State. Oregon State, this is a huge spot for a bounce-back win for them after losing to my Wazoo Cougars last week, my second favorite team in college football. Cam Rising not going to play in this game, as it seems. So Nate Johnson going to roll out there with another start. Good for him. Not very impressive last week for them. They, on offense, only scored 7 points, but we know that defense at Utah is legit. Mm-hmm. And Oregon State, they need a big bounce back from DJU. He struggled early on last week, kind of came around towards the end. So if Oregon State can build off that second half, kind of like how we were talking about with Alabama, if they can build off that second half, I think they're going to be fine this week. They're the more balanced team on offense. They've got a really good defense, nothing like the Utes. But this is going to be the best defense Oregon State probably plays all year. I truly believe Utah has the best defense in the Pac-12. If they had Cam Rising there, they'd be a completely different animal. And sadly, they just don't. So I think the line right now is 3 to Oregon State. And I'm going to say Oregon State covers. I'm going to say they win and cover. I think they bounce back after the Wazoo loss. They can't really afford another loss if they really want to stay in the Pac-12 picture. And I think they take advantage of Nate Johnson being the quarterback and not Cam Rising. I'm going to go with the Beavers on Friday night.
It's actually 4.5. Do you still agree they cover?
Ooh, yeah, I'll say they cover. I think they win by a touchdown.
Okay. You were talking about your Washington State Cougars. These are my Oregon State Beavers. You were really high on Washington State coming into the game or into the season. I was really high on Oregon State coming into the season. And it's funny how they played, and great game last week. Could have gone either way really at the end.
My favorite game of the weekend. It was a great game.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. And I mean, this is kind of similar where, I mean, these two teams, they could end up playing again. I mean, I know the Pac-12 is loaded. It's the best conference in America right now this season, but they could end up playing each other down the road, and it could be completely different. But I do want to say DJU has to play better. He did not play well in that first half. They almost brought on the upset. Not upset, comeback. But, they didn't. And DJU, he didn't play well. He didn't play well at all in that first half. He played bad. But Damian Martinez already has almost 500 yards, 432 yards on 57 carries, only one touchdown, but still, he's played really well. I think this Oregon State offense can get it done. And the Utah Utes, their defense, it's an SEC defense disguised in the Pac-12. It's crazy. They're really good, but that offense is just, without Cam Rising, they're really nothing, because UCLA doesn't have a good defense, and they were able to shut them down pretty well. So Oregon State, top 5, top 3 defense in the Pac-12. So I think they can get it done. I also have Oregon State covering, although like you said, game of the week, it can still go either way. I think playing in Corvallis, they're going to have a big advantage. And so I got Oregon State, my team.
So let's stay out west in the Pac-12. Does Colorado bounce back this week, Jake?
What's your definition of bounce back? And I'll give you an answer.
Do they cover?
It's
21.5.
It's sitting at 21.5.
Yes, 21.5 at home against USC.
This one's hard because it's going to be loud there. It is going to be loud. I think Colorado Stadium doesn't hold a whole lot, but 50K. I'm pretty sure it goes up to what?
50K.
Yeah, not that many. So this one's hard. This one's so hard because USC's defense is so bad. Give me Colorado to cover. I think USC wins one. I think it's a bad beat for whoever bet USC. Give me Colorado minus 21. Like I said, USC's defense really bad. Colorado's offense, they they struggled hard against Oregon, but Oregon has a really good defense, top 3 in the Pac-12 in my opinion. They're another SEC defense disguised in the Pac-12, just like Utah. So I think after coming off that week, seeing how bad they can really be, I think Dion got them right for this week, and I don't think they pull off the upset. I don't even think they have a chance to. I just think this USC offense is way too good, and Colorado's defense is way too bad. And also, you're still missing Travis Hunter, who I'm not the biggest fan of Travis Hunter, but he is a great player, and he's a difference maker. And so on both sides of the ball. And so your defense is going to be worse without him. Your offense is going to be worse without him. But I think those wide receivers, Xavier Weaver, the transfer from Auburn, and then Jimmy Horn, I think all 3 of them can get it done against this USC defense. And they're lucky. USC defense, that front 7 is horrible. And so it's not like you're going up against Oregon's dudes and they can just get past you every time, and sacked Shedeur Sanders 10 times for like minus 70 yards. I mean, Bear Alexander isn't going to be getting a lot of push up there, in my opinion. Haven't heard much about him at all this year. Thought I was. Haven't heard anything about him. So I got Colorado covering. I got USC to win.
Yeah. No, and I think this is going to be a game where we see the best transfer that USC brought in this offseason kind of go off, and it's going to be Marshawn Lloyd. And that's just because and we talked about this, the trenches at Colorado are significantly smaller than most of the teams are going to play. And yes, USC doesn't have great defensive line, but they're much bigger. And I think they're going to create a better push. Even though I know you don't really like Bear Alexander, but I do think he has a big game on Saturday, just because he's going to be going up against people that just aren't his size. He just should. It's basically like going up against almost a D2 offensive line. So, I mean, these guys should dominate at the point of attack. I think the defense will be okay, but let me just hit you with this. Shedeur Sanders has thrown 169 passes this season.
Oh my gosh.
Caleb Williams has thrown 101. So, just for a little comparison, that's insane. And Shedeur has done great with it. I mean, 130 completions for 1,410 yards, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, 1 interception is really good, even though they played 4 games. He's a great quarterback. A lot of people want to hate on him for being Deion Sun, but he really is a really good quarterback and probably a pretty good NFL prospect one day. But they really got to get the run game going. I mean, Dalen Edwards is their leading rusher, and he only has 157 yards rushing through 4 games. I mean, they are a one-trick pony on offense, and they need to figure out the run part. I don't think they will this year. They've got to get better offensive linemen. So that's a problem for 2-3 years down the road. And they don't really have many physical backs. I mean, Edwards is more of a pass catcher anyway than he is a runner. But I do expect them to hang in with USC. I think they lose by like 17. So I do think Colorado covers. I like your call there. But I expect Marshawn Lloyd to have a breakout game. I'm saying like 200 yards plus on the ground and a couple of touchdowns to add on to that. Just because I think it's going to be that he is just going to run all over this Colorado defense. And what's Colorado defense better at anyway? They're better at defending the pass. But it's Caleb Williams. It's the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. He's still going to throw for 500 on him probably. So we'll see.
I was big on Marshawn Lloyd coming out of high school. He was coming from DeMatha Catholic in Maryland. I thought we were going to get him. Ended up going to South Carolina. Had a decent career at South Carolina before he transferred out. But speaking of South Carolina, what do you think of that game tomorrow? 7:30 kickoff. I think it can kind of go either way.
I think this is a sneaky game. Now, if this was in Columbia, South Carolina, I might even be apt to pick the Gamecocks to win this game. But because it's at Tennessee, Neyland Stadium is such a tough place to play. Tennessee is a 12-point favorite. I'm going to go Tennessee to win. I'm actually going to go South Carolina to cover, though. I do think South Carolina keeps it close enough to where they cover the 12 points. Obviously, Tennessee, another offense that hasn't clicked this year. Joe Milton hasn't turned out what I thought he would be. He's more of what you thought he would be. The South Carolina offense is if they get going, they get going. Xavier Legette, he's a dude. And Spencer Rattler, we've talked about him. He gets a lot of hate, a lot of unwarranted hate. I think he's a really good quarterback. He's probably a top 5 quarterback in the SEC for sure. So, yeah, I think that South Carolina hangs in there. But at the end, I think Tennessee is just too talented, too much. And that crowd is just going to be too much. So I'm going to go Tennessee to win, South Carolina to cover. But if South Carolina wins this game, I mean, what are the implications in the SEC? I mean, the SEC East is basically given to Georgia on a silver plate if South Carolina wins this game. Tennessee already sitting at 3-1. I mean, yeah, Georgia still has to go to Knoxville, but Tennessee not playing for a chance for the SEC East at the end of the year against Georgia. I don't think they win that game. So I think Tennessee has to win this game. They really need to win every game they play up until Georgia, and they need to win that game to keep going. So they're kind of in do or die mode now. Mm-hmm. And obviously South Carolina's got nothing to lose. They've already got 2 losses on the year. Their year in terms of playoff and title contention and SEC title contention is over. So they're just playing to upset. And that's a dangerous team right there when they're playing just to upset you. So I do think Tennessee wins again. South Carolina covers.
Yeah, kind of not completely out of the SEC race. I mean, I know they're fighting from behind, but they only have 1 loss to Georgia in the SEC. So like I said, long shot, but they're still in it. I mean, they have to win every game, and then they have to have Georgia lose 2 SEC games, which, probably won't happen, but it might. But exactly like you, I'm actually going Tennessee to win, South Carolina to cover. I think this is a 1-possession game, maybe a 10-point game by the end of it. Like you said, I think Nealon keeps them in it. But Joe Milton hasn't been good. I tried to tell people. People didn't want to listen. Dude's not good. Dude has all the potential in the world with his arm, but doesn't know how to throw. He just doesn't. He can't throw it to open receivers, and he can't decide to throw it to open receivers. He's just really bad. I don't like him. I'm sure he's a great guy. But I don't like him as a quarterback. I'm glad he's not at Georgia. But Spencer Rattler, best QB in the SEC, in my opinion. I honestly don't even think it's close this year. Maybe with Brady Cook. Outside of that, there has not been a singular.
Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels will be. He will be. It'll be between him and Spencer Rattler. But so far this year, Jaden Daniels has not played like the best quarterback in the SEC. But I mean, in my SEC tier rankings, I gave him number 1 at the beginning of the year. I do think he'll fight up to that position. But for right now, Spencer Rattler's playing the best football out of any SEC QB. And he's doing it behind a really bad O-line. It's not as bad as it was against North Carolina. I think that was inflated. Maybe they just didn't come in with the best game plan. I don't know. Maybe Spencer upset them throughout the week and they just wanted him to get hit a little bit. But I mean, they're not that bad. But
they sabotaged their quarterback, huh?
It looked like it because they haven't played that bad since North Carolina, but they're still going to give up a few sacks. And like you said, this Tennessee offense hasn't gotten things figured out. I think they do a little bit this week, but I really just think they can do that because they're at home. Like you said, if they were at Columbia, I might be picking South Carolina, but I think the home field advantage in this one is just too much for the Gamecocks to over.
What do you think that line would be? So it's sitting at 12 and Knoxville. What would that line be in Columbia? I think like 2.
I think it would be -1.5 Tennessee, maybe -2.5, somewhere along that line. It would be less than 3 points. Because I mean, again,
a change of venue is that.
Yeah,
and it's in the SEC too. That's like an SEC trend. You change a venue in the SEC, it's crazy.
And again, South Carolina Stadium, not one that you think of right off the top of your head, but that place gets so loud.
Sandstorm, baby. Sandstorm.
Every time Georgia comes in, every time a ranked opponent comes in, it gets loud.
Alabama knows. Also, Jake Garcia.
Also, one name we didn't mention, who we have to, Xavier Legette. Might be the best receiver in college football this season. He has 27 receptions, 556 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, he might be. He might. I'm not saying he is more talented than Roma Dunze. I'm not saying he's more talented than Marvin Harrison. He doesn't compare to them. But this guy could play his way into a first-round pick, and he's playing like the best receiver in college football.
Yeah. How about we keep it over there in the SEC East? Another game that I think can really go either way. The Florida Gators traveling to Lexington, Kentucky. Devin Leary hasn't been quite what Kentucky fans thought he'd be. Turn the ball, not really taking care of the ball. He's thrown 5 interceptions. So that's pretty troublesome if you're a Kentucky fan. But you got the Florida Gators riding high off a win against Tennessee last week. They ran the ball extremely well. I think Graham Mertz is a great game manager. I think that he kind of fits the mold of that description pretty well. Ricky Pearsall, dog. Probably has the best.
I
That
told
catch
you.
he had. That
Told
one
you he's
catch
good.
was disgusting.
Dog.
That was better than the Odell catch. That was just
I
because
agree.
he hit like by three people at the same time.
He got
But
hammered.
yeah, he did. The UK's really got to get this run game going against Florida on Saturday. We got a lot of really good 11, 12 o'clock kickoff times, but favored by I think it's 2.5 at home for Kentucky. I'm leaning the Wildcats right now. It's one. Oh, it went down. I'm really leaning the Wildcats right now. I think they're a lot underrated. And another team that is struggling on offense that I think hasn't hit their peak. That's kind of been a trend in the SEC. It seems like. I think they're going to hit it. I think they're going to end up. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to cover. Obviously, with it only being 1 point, they're a sneaky 4-0 team. And I think if they win this game, they might be ranked next week. So Kentucky better watch out for them over there in the East. But I'm gonna say they win and beat Florida, and they win and cover. Sorry,
yeah, this this game's tough. This game is so tough. Florida has figured things out a little bit this year. Kentucky, the exact opposite, has not looked good. They're still 4-0. They haven't played anyone. Let me tell you this. You know what I heard this week? Out of all transfer quarterbacks, all of them, the one with the highest completion percentage is playing in this game, but it's not Devin Leary.
Yeah.
It is Graham Mertz.
Yeah.
And I know. He only throws screens. He doesn't throw the ball past 5 yards line of scrimmage. But dude, I mean, that's still impressive. I mean, he's leading everyone.
78% completion percentage.
And I think Devin Leary can figure it out this game, but he hasn't looked good this year. He hasn't looked good at all. They got a good running back there, and Ray Davis, who transferred from Vandy, and they got wide receivers. I don't think people know that. They have really good wide receivers. But I'm going to go Florida to cover, and I'm going to go Florida to win. Okay. I just think they're the proven commodity, and I think they carry that into this. Lexington, not a super hard place to play. It can be if it's in the winter, and their stadium is set up where on the four corners they have wind blowing right directly. So I mean, it can be 10 degrees outside and it feels like -5. So it can make it really hard to play there. But weather should be good, should hold up for the Gators to get a win here. I'm looking at Graham Mertz. I think he has a pretty good game.
Yeah, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year through 4 weeks, Graham Mertz would lead transfer quarterbacks in college football in completion percentage, I would have been like, "You are nuts.
You are crazy."
But yeah,
he's doing it.
He's looked great. I mean, he really hasn't looked bad. I thought he played a great game against Utah. I mean, considering the circumstances, I thought he played well.
He's doing what they asked him to do. That's all he's doing, and he's doing it at a high rate.
I think your take on that's completely fair. They are probably the more trustworthy team right now than Kentucky. But at the same time, I haven't liked all of what I've seen from them this year, and they've been pretty inconsistent as well. So I just think it's different with Florida because they've played two good teams and Kentucky hasn't played one. But
Kentucky higher ceiling. Florida has just been playing at a higher level than them. Not super high, and that's why this game can go either way. Also, they're playing at Kentucky, so I don't know. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter. Probably going to come down to the last drive, in my opinion.
One thing I really hate about going to the Mississippi State Alabama game. The one thing I hate is I'm going to miss a ton of games. The 2:30 kicks, and then I'm going to miss this awesome 5 o'clock kick that is happening just 2 hours north of where I'll be. And that's the LSU Tigers going in to play the Ole Miss Rebels. Mm-hmm. What a game this could end up being. And I wrote a story today for WVUA, the news station I work at here in Tuscaloosa, about the SEC West finish. And obviously, the three teams I think that are the top tier programs, and I think both of us can agree on this right now, in the SEC West is LSU, Ole Miss, and Alabama. And obviously, one of the pieces of the puzzle was found out last week when Alabama beat Ole Miss. But what about some chaos? What if Ole Miss goes on to beat LSU this weekend, and then maybe later down the road, LSU beats Alabama? I mean, what would that look like? Yes, that would be complete and utter chaos. Hopefully, Alabama can just take care of business. But I mean, this is a close game, right? This is going to end up being a really close game. Could end up being the best game of the day. Currently, LSU still sitting at that 2.5 point favorite. ESPN FBI does have Ole Miss with a 57% chance of winning this game. What's your feel on this game, Jake? I've been going back and forth all week. I think I found out who I'm going to stick with, just because I trust this one team more. But go ahead and tell me who do you got this weekend?
I do want to say ESPN FBI. I know they have Ole Miss favored. ESPN FBI sucks. It is so bad. I didn't realize how bad it was until this year. Um, I don't. Now that I know that the matchup predictor is based on that, I'm never trusting it again. But I mean, Ole Miss is favored in. Sorry, Ole Miss is not favored in this game. Ole Miss, it says they're going to win, but LSU is favored, and I'm going to go LSU to cover. I'm going to go LSU to win. I think it's -2.5. Am I correct on that? Yeah, it's -2.5. I just think Jaden Daniels plays at a level we haven't seen him play at yet, and he has good stats on the year: almost 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I think people just got a bad taste in their mouths left after he played at FSU and he didn't play well. I think he redeems himself, and I think Jackson Dart continues on the trend that he played last week. Obviously, LSU's defense isn't as good as Bama's, but I mean, you're a lot higher on Ole Miss. You're a lot higher on Jackson Dart than I am. I don't think he's that good. I think it's just in the offense that he plays. And I think this LSU defense has a lot of athletes, and they have somebody that can get to the ball and make him throw some picks. And I think Harold Perkins and the rest of that D line they're going to make him throw faster than he wants to. And that O line is not good on Ole Miss. I mean, Alabama proved it. They're not going to be able to hold up. And I'm looking at Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. I think they have huge games against this pretty bad Ole Miss defense. And this game is at the SIP. Ole Miss is the home team, but I like you said, game of the week potentially. Think it's going to be a close game, but I do have LSU etching out the win. Probably wins by 1 touchdown by the end of it.
I completely agree with you, and I think everything you said is pretty fair. I do think, and we've talked about this, we touched on this a little bit this year. LSU secondary is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's something that could be exploited by Lane Kiffin this week. Jackson Dart is I think he's a really good passer of the football. I think he's can do a lot of things. And you may be right. He may not be a great quarterback in other systems, but this is one of the most quarterback-friendly systems in college football that Lane Kiffin's got. That's why he's so good at what he does, right? And I mean, I think it's so interesting to see what Joe Milton did in the Lane Kiffin offense. I mean, Josh Heupel, is a quarterback whisperer himself, but Lane Kiffin's just got that extra creativity that no one's seeing. I think a lot of that bleeds into this game this week, but I don't think it's enough for LSU. I think LSU's front seven is one of the better ones in college football. Even though statistically they haven't proven it yet, I still think, and kind of like we've been talking about offenses, I think their defense is obviously a work in progress. That secondary is completely brand new. And then the front seven still kind of trying to work out some kinks. But Mason Smith up there in the front is a dog. Harold Perkins is a dog. They're going to figure out they're going to be able to stop Quinshon Judkins again. Alabama had success doing it last week. Every other team that Ole Miss has played this year, Ole Miss has just got no push on the O-line. And they're not great in pass pro either. So it sucks for Jackson Dart because I do think he's a good quarterback. He's just not he's not getting a chance. And I think he makes some plays this week, but I don't think it's enough against LSU. Jaden Daniels is playing at a great level. It helps when he's got 2 high quality receivers, especially Malik Neighbors on the outside. And then obviously Ole Miss's defense isn't that great either. So I'm going to go LSU by 10. I'm going to say LSU wins by 10. But let me say Vaught's also another place that's an underrated. Vaught Hemingway Stadium in Oxford is another underrated place to play football. Alabama's gone in there in the past and lost games there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss won the game, but I do trust LSU's pedigree. They've been there, they've done that before. They're like you said with Florida, LSU's the more trustworthy team in this scenario, and I'm going to take them to win the game.
Let me say, I think they need to get Quinshon Judkins going. Jackson Dart is still their leading rusher. Quinshon Judkins hasn't done anything at all the first 4 games. Not against Tulane, not against Bama, not against Georgia Tech, not against whoever they played the first week. He just hasn't been able to do anything. And, part of it is definitely on their O-line. But were we fooled with how he played last year? Because he's not making the first guy miss. He's not making the second guy. He's not making anyone miss.
No,
he's going.
He had a few plays last week where he was bottled up against Alabama, and he stuck it out to the right side. I really do think this is a schematic issue, not necessarily a schematic issue, but just personnel wise, and they just don't have the O-line. I mean, you can even tell in the passing game they don't have it. So I really think that's playing to a doubt to him. He's a dog. I mean, he is the best running back in the SEC, hands down. I think if you put him on what's a really good O-line in the SEC? I mean, you put him on Georgia, he's going to have tons of.
I'll take him.
Yeah, I was about to say we could sit here and say
I would love to have.
He was last year a fluke, but then you turn around the question: well, would you like to have Quinshon Judkins on your team? I think the answer everyone would say is yes.
I don't think it was a fluke. I just wanted to see your opinion on it because it's just crazy to think through 4 weeks he's not the leading rusher. I don't even know if he has 200 yards.
He does. He has 200. But and
200.
what's crazy is I think he was only like 80 or 90 yards behind Dart going into last week. And Jackson Dart only rushed for 1 yard against Alabama. So that just went to show you Alabama shut him down again. So I don't know, but I will take LSU to win and cover.
Good. Let's head to potentially my game of the week. That one's up there, but also Notre Dame at Duke. This one's going to be interesting. Notre Dame plays such a hard schedule. Hold on, let me bring this up.
They do. They do.
They play.
Don't.
Do what? Yeah, typically they don't. They
Oh.
play Ohio State, Duke, USC, and Clemson. I know Clemson's not what they've been. I do think they will be good eventually. But I mean, that's a hard schedule to play, especially with Duke having such a year they're having right now. For me, though, what's the line of this? 5.5 for Notre Dame. I do think Notre Dame's too much for Duke to handle. I think Duke can handle, maybe a talented team, but not someone who's playing from behind already. Notre Dame still wants to make the playoff, and they still have a chance to do that with how hard of a schedule they play, and them still having to play USC. They know they have to win this game, and I think their offense is going to come out and get some things figured out. Sam Hartman still hasn't. I don't think he has a turnover. I know he doesn't have an interception. Has over 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns on the year. And, Austin, what's his first name? Estime?
Yeah.
What's his first name?
It's Andre Estime.
Audric Estime, potentially best running back in all of college football. Still doing really good. Potential. Dude, 77 carries, 591 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's looked good.
I played one more game than everyone else in college football has, though.
That is fair. You are right about that one. I think we'll get to see it against this good Duke team. Duke just doesn't have the guys. I know we've still talked about it. Notre Dame doesn't have the guys on the outside, but it's still better than whoever Duke has. I think Duke lent themselves to a win because of how bad Clemson's weapons were. And Notre Dame doesn't have anything special on the outside, but I think they do have better guys than Clemson, and they'll be able to get it done. I think Sam Hartman's going to have a big day. And I do think this is a good game. Let me get that straight, because I think this might be the game of the week. It's going to be a fourth quarter game, but I just have Notre Dame coming out with a win. And similar to what I said with LSU, I think they win by 1 touchdown, and they cover that 5.5.
Well, I definitely, and I'll go ahead and give you this prediction. I expect Sam Hartman to be sitting in New York by the end of the year. I think he will be a Heisman candidate. I think he's going to be top 4 on that list. And I think he's going to show you why this weekend. I really like Riley Leonard, the Duke quarterback. I think he's a really good player. Duke's got a really good offense, but just like when we were talking about Oregon State earlier, this is a great bounce back opportunity for Notre Dame to kind of still show the nation, hey, we're still that team. Ohio State's a really good team. They showed it last week, even with their inconsistencies. But Notre Dame is going to still show the nation, look, we're still a top 10 team. We're a really good team. We just lost to another really good team. And Notre Dame's going to win. They're going to cover the spread. And I actually think they win by 14. So I trust in Sam Hartman. I think he's one of the best, if not the best quarterback in college football. Dude's been a game changer for Notre Dame. I mean, imagine if Tyler Buchner was the starting quarterback there right now. They would have gotten
bad
by Ohio State. It would have been 17-0. So, and they probably, I don't even know if they'd win this game if Tyler Buchner was the starting quarterback. So Sam Hartman's been a godsend for Notre Dame. I know touchdown Jesus down there is thankful Sam Hartman's there. And so is Lou Holtz. So, but here, another really good game this weekend that's kind of being overlooked. And yes, it could end up being an absolute blowout. This will be the last game we preview tonight. Kansas, Texas. Okay. Texas has been a great team all year, obviously beat Alabama, but Kansas has been a thorn in the side of Texas in the past. Do you think we maybe see a past Kansas team show up in Austin this weekend?
I can't decide on this game because when you look at the past, when you look at how much Texas struggled with Kansas, it's always been from, and I know it's still an upset, but it's always been from how bad is Kansas and how good is Texas, and then Kansas just happens to make it a close game. This one, it's different. People are talking about Kansas differently, and they're saying it's a really tough game for Texas, and it's at home for Texas. I'm kind of confused why people are thinking Kansas is really good. I don't know why they're a top 25 team. And hey, maybe they come out and they show something. Maybe they play really well against this really good Texas team. But I don't think they do. I don't think Kansas is a very good team. They obviously don't have the weapons. They have a pretty good QB in Jalen Daniels. But outside of that, they don't have a soul. And Texas, super talented team. I think they're able to get it done. I think the line is 15.5, 16.5 now. I think Texas covers and covers pretty easily. Texas hasn't always been consistent this year, but I think they're going to get excited and get hyped for this game against Kansas, because some people are picking Kansas to pull the upset, and I don't really know why.
Yeah, I definitely don't think Kansas is going to pull the upset, but let me tell you, I'm still going back and forth in my mind if Kansas is going to cover.
Really?
I do think this is going to be anywhere in between 14 to 21 points. I think Texas wins the game just because, like you said, they're going to out-athlete them. But I do think Kansas is a good team. I think they might end up being 8-4 team this year. And I think the job Lance Leipold has done in Kansas cannot be overlooked, because he has been one of those coaches that has just been overlooked his entire career. And, man, if he's given a shot at a bigger program around the country, what would he do? I mean, I think Jalen is he's got some, and what's crazy is Leipold's got some Wisconsin roots. He coached at a Wisconsin D2 school. I was interested that I thought Wisconsin would hire him this last cycle, honestly, after all the good work he's done at Kansas, but they got a good one in Fickle. They should be too worried about it. But I mean, Leipold's a good coach.
Let me give some love to Kansas, because it sounded like I was just hating on them. I think they're a decent team, but it is so hard to coach out there. It is one of the worst jobs in Power 5. It is so hard. No one wants to come to Kansas. Not a soul wants to go to Kansas. I know I don't. And so it's even like that at Kansas State. And so if you got a job at Kansas State and you can't, or Kansas, you turn it around like both of those coaches have, I think that's saying something about the coach. And so,
yeah, I mean, 4-0, and then last year they started off 6-0 last year, 5-0, 6-0.
Yeah,
it was 5 or 6. I think it was 5. But
so
yeah, first time I saw this week, first time since 1914 that they're starting off 4-0 in 2 straight years. Crazy.
That's wild. But I do. You know what? I'm going to do it. Kansas covers. I'm going to say Kansas keeps it in between, makes it a 14-point game. I think Texas wins by 14. Kansas covers. I think
against your number one team.
Do what?
Against your number one team.
I just think Kansas has a number on them. And they've done it in the past. I think they might do it again. And I trust Jalen Daniels. I think he's a great quarterback. And their backup, Jason Bean, is not a bad quarterback either. So I trust Kansas to cover. Do not think they'll get the upset. But kind of like the Wyoming Texas game, I think this might be pretty close going into the fourth quarter. But that's just where Texas separates themselves. And they did it against Alabama. I think they'll do it against Kansas. But that'll do it for our previews. I thought it was a pretty good little preview section there. Good. How about we talk about, let's do our riser teams. We won't do what I called it, but
riser teams. Yeah.
We'll call it the riser teams. We'll go into that. We're going to each of us will pick one team per conference, and we'll talk about really what we're going to talk about. The definition of a riser team is teams that aren't playing as well as they should, but will end up figuring it out and look a lot better. So I'll kind of start off just to give you an example. The SEC, I'm going to go with Alabama, just because I think the defense is already playing at a national championship caliber level. The offense is not what we expect it to be. We think it's going to, I surely hope it gets better. And I think it will as the season goes on. Like I was saying earlier, the familiarity with Milroe is going to start clicking. The receivers are going to start buying in and getting open. The O-line will end up playing better, and I think the run game starts better. So offense is where I'm looking at Alabama, and I think it will get better. So that's an example of a riser team. That's my SEC team. So, Jake, who do you have as your SEC riser team?
Yeah, for me, I kind of tried to stay away from some of the top 25 teams. One team in here is maybe two. I don't think they're in the AP anymore. Well, they were. But my SEC, I have South Carolina. Right now they're 2-2. They didn't look good against North Carolina. They looked good in the first half against Georgia until the second half, and then they looked abysmal. But I think they're a lot better than what they're playing right now. I think they end the year as a top 25 team, and kind of like what you said earlier, they're playing these games as just an upset alert now. They want to stop Tennessee. They want to stop whoever else. What West team do they play? Do you happen to know off the top of your head?
South Carolina.
Oh, they just played Mississippi State, actually.
Yeah, they did. They played
But
State.
they're going to be playing from behind for the rest of the season, and so I think they're going to end the year as a top 25 team, and kind of similar to last year where they beat Tennessee and Clemson at the very end, ruined both of those seasons. They could do a very similar thing at the end of this season.
And I know let's jump to the ACC because I know both of us kind of echoed
We
a
got the
sentiment
same
there.
team.
And our team is Clemson. I mean, um, it's kind of obvious they aren't what they've been in the past. They don't have the skill outside, but they still got a really talented roster. Talent in the trenches, but especially on defense. I mean, they've got a really talented defense, and they've played two of the better teams in their conference this year in Duke and Florida State. I do think they end up at least 9, maybe 10 wins. They may lose one other game, and they've actually got a pretty good test this upcoming weekend, playing at Syracuse. I mean, a team that really took them down to the wire last year. And Syracuse is 4-0 right now. Got a really good quarterback, former Mississippi State quarterback Garrett Schrader. I think it might actually be a really good game. I'm going to go Clemson to win it, but I think they find a way back and get on the right track, and I think they put together some wins and get back up there. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I got Clemson as well. They're 2-2. Like you said, probably played the two best teams in the ACC thus far in Duke and FSU. And they play Notre Dame later in the season. I don't have them winning that game, but outside of that, I don't see them losing again. They have a super talented roster. Cade Klubnik is really good. Will Shipley is really good, but that's pretty much the only weapon he has. He's going to have to do a lot on himself. And I mean, the bright thing is outside of Notre Dame, you don't really play anyone the rest of the year. So I think they're gonna have a chance to just body the rest of their opponents. And Dabo's a good coach. I'm not a big fan of him. Not a lot of people are, but he is a good coach. You can't look at what he's done at Clemson and just dismiss it. He's gonna get his team ready to fight, ready to win. And even though he's out of the national championship contention, is he out of ACC? I think so. Maybe not.
No, they're not technically.
It's close, but definitely fighting from behind in that one. Even though they're out of those things, he's going to get his team ready. So that's mine.
Yeah, I totally agree. And in the Pac-12, actually, we both have teams that play each other last week, but I'm going to go Utah. And this really is only contingent on when Cam Rising comes back, if he comes back, because there are reports out there saying he may not even play this year. He could get a medical red shirt and come back next year for like his 7th or 8th season of college football.
Crazy.
So if they get him back, I really do think they're a completely different caliber team on offense. That's no disrespect to Nate Johnson or Bryson Barnes, either one of them. Bryson's showed you before he can do it. Nate's really done a good job passing the ball, a lot better than a lot of people thought he would. And he's obviously a great runner, but Cam Rising obviously is just completely different for that offense. And to pair him with that great defense that they have, Utah could end up being a really scary team if he comes back soon. And hopefully he does, because you do not want to waste a generational defense. And Utah might have one of those. They won the Pac-12 back-to-back years. Could they win it 3 years in a row? They could, but I think Cam Rising has to be on the team to do it. And if they do, they could rise to the top of that conference.
Yeah. And similar with Utah, UCLA, not the exact same with an injured quarterback, but they have a freshman quarterback. And Dante Moore is really good. I think when you look back in 3 to 4 years at this past recruitment cycle with QBs, it's going to be stacked. Jackson Arnold, Dante Moore, someone else. Who's the other 5-star? Went to USC. What was his name?
Malachi Nelson.
Malachi Nelson. Yeah. Really good quarterbacks. But I think Dante Moore has a chance to be the best out of all of them. He's a future first rounder, in my opinion. And I don't think he played their first game. So he's only been playing for 3 games. And so when you look at the end of the year, I think he's going to be very different. They only scored 7 against Utah. They struggled. And like we said, that Utah defense is legit. But he's going to be really good. And, UCLA is still not out of it in the Pac-12. Pac-12 is the best conference in college football right now. But UCLA can still make some noise. They only have 1 loss on the year, and they still got to play everyone. They got to play Washington State, Oregon State, USC. But I mean, UCLA still got a chance in there.
Let's go to the Big 12. I'm going to go with UCF. John Rice Plumlee's been hurt the last couple games. Had the backup in there. He's actually played really well. But they lost to a Kansas State team, just like we were talking about with Oregon State, who was in fight mode after losing to Missouri in the previous week. So they just ran into a good team at the wrong time. I do think they end up bouncing back and having a pretty good year, either 8 or 9 wins. Former classmate of ours, Kobe Hudson, having
Hudson
a great season.
off.
Having a great season. So we'll see what the Knights end up doing, but I do think they're one of these teams that's going to bounce back and end up being the top team in their conference.
Yeah. And I probably would have picked UCF too, but that was your team. I went with Texas Tech. You know, they were doing really bad. They're 1-3 right now, just lost to West Virginia. But I mean, coming into the season, no one thought they were going to be here. They thought obviously they were going to lose to Oregon. But outside of that, they were going to be 3-1 coming into this game instead of 1-3. And you know, take a look at the schedule. They don't really play anyone outside of Texas the rest of the year. I know you said you think Kansas is good. I don't really think so. I think that game is very winnable. They also play Kansas State, who could be a challenge. But outside of that, the rest of the games are very winnable and they should win. And so Texas Tech have not played well at all, but I think they can definitely turn it around. Tyler Shaw, he's pretty good, you know, not elite. There's a reason he transferred out of Oregon, but you know, he's a pretty good power 5 quarterback. So I think they got a chance to turn it around. And also they just got the commitment, I think a week ago, 2 weeks ago, just got the commitment of Micah Hudson. Is that his name? 5-star receiver, for highest recruit ever to go to Lubbock. And so I think, you know,
why would you want to go there?
I agree. I 100% agree. But I think with that hot start on the recruitment trail, maybe that can spark something in the season for them.
Yeah. Well, how about starting us off on the Big Ten? What you got there?
I got Nebraska.
This is a tough one.
Yeah, I got Nebraska. They were one of my sleeper teams coming into the year, and they've disappointed me. Actually, I don't even want to say they. Jeff Sims has disappointed me. And so
I didn't play last week.
They do what?
They took Jeff Sims didn't start last week.
Let's go.
They took him out.
Then let's go. Heinrich Harburg. Never heard of him.
Yep.
Didn't really do great last week.
Sounds better to me.
Louisiana Tech, 8 for 17 with 170 yards. You know, maybe this is a bad pick, but you know, I wanted to go away from some of the bigger hitters, and that's all the Big Ten is. It's the top 3 and then everyone else. So Nebraska 2-2, you know, of course they started off with 2 losses to Minnesota, a tough loss to them. And then a loss to Colorado, which wasn't as bad as what people think, in my opinion. But I mean, they still got to play Michigan, and that's kind of it. They play Michigan and then they play the rest of the Big Ten West, you know, and Iowa, Wisconsin, Maryland's in the East, but Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois. So they have an easy schedule here on out after this week against Michigan. So I think Nebraska's going to turn it around. Maybe Michigan gives them some confidence and they learn a few things after getting beat by 40 this week.
Well, like you said, you can't. I don't think I really could stay away from the heavy hitters just because there really isn't anyone else in this conference that I have any, you know, feel for that's going to be any better. But I still don't think we've seen the best from Ohio State. Obviously, they still look a little discombobulated on offense. That defense is for real, just kind of like Notre Dame. But yeah, I definitely think their offense is gonna get it rolling at some point. Kyle McCord was a high recruit for a reason. And I think he's going to show everyone why he was. And I think Ohio State is going to end up getting this thing on a roll soon. And, man, the Big Ten, when those 3 heavy hitters play each other, what a time to be alive that's going to be. I can't wait for those games. Those are going to be some of the best games all year. So I think the Riser team, we may see another comeback, maybe. Probably not for a while. We may do like a down team, though, a team that we thought was going to be a lot better than they were, and they kind of cracked.
We'll do that here in a couple weeks. That'll be fun.
Yeah. So a success, but let's get back to our Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was about to ask you. You want to go ahead and lead us off with your first team?
Oh, I would love to lead off with the Auburn Tigers as my team because it's not getting any prettier for them. Let's just put it like that. No quarterback, playing Georgia this week, and then heading into your SEC West gauntlet. Yeah, doesn't look good for the Auburn Tigers, and boy, could I not be happier. So. Yeah, looking forward to the Georgia. I don't pull for Georgia much, but I hope the Dogs beat them down this week. I hope there is not a single tree with a piece of toilet paper on it this week in Auburn, Alabama. That would make my heart very happy. I love when they lose. It's the best thing ever. And when Alabama wins a game and Auburn loses a game on the same day, there's not a better day in the year. So and Auburn losing against A&M, looking absolutely pathetic on offense. And against, I mean, And let's be honest. And we heard with the news Connor Wegman's out for the year. Something I forgot to
I
mention.
wanted to mention that.
Big letdown for A&M, but I'll be honest, it doesn't affect my view of the team at all. Max Johnson's he's a guy. I've seen Max Johnson. He's a tough football player. He can make a lot of the throws. He's a lot better on his feet than a lot of people think he is. I think this A&M team is actually in good hands, and I honestly think he's going to protect the ball a little bit better than Wegman does. Sure, he doesn't have the upside of Wegman, but I definitely think he's going to protect the ball, and I think A&M is going to be fine with him playing quarterback. But Auburn let him put some really good throws on them last week, and didn't look good for them at all. And it's not going to get any easier for them. So definitely,
yeah. Speaking of A&M, I always love to hate on them. Like you, from a different opinion. Like you, though, I don't think this changes anything for them with Max Johnson. They're still overrated. They're still not good. They're still going to be overrated. People are going to put them in the top 25. Again, not going to know why. They have the weapon in there with what's his name? I'm blanking. Evan Stewart, great wide receiver. I wish we had him. But outside of that, Anai Smith hasn't been great. Muhammad, forget his last name, hasn't been great. Running backs.
Muhammad. This is his name.
Oh, that's his last name. Running backs haven't been great. O-line hasn't been great. Defense haven't been great, especially against Miami. Anyway, love a chance to hate on them because they're not good. Don't know why people think they are. But yeah, my team is the Iowa Hawkeyes. They lost 31-0 against Penn State. And I know it was raining. It was coming down pretty hard. But you couldn't stop Penn State. They lost by 31. Didn't put a singular point up there. I told you, I said Penn State can score 17. I think it was 17 and a half. So I said I think they can score 18 and they can cover. And that's exactly what happened. They're like we said, they have probably their best QB in recent memory with Cade McNamara, but that does not mean he's good at all. He's not good. They are 3-1. They didn't play. They played 2 cupcakes in Utah State and I think Central Michigan, maybe Western Michigan. Didn't look good in their game against Iowa State, though. They only won by 7, and Iowa State is not a quality team anymore. Luckily for them, they play in the Big Ten West, and they don't play any of the heavy hitters outside of Penn State. Very winnable schedule with Purdue, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan State, Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, and Nebraska. Very easy schedule here on out. Iowa's just not good. Their defense is decent, but that offense is horrendous. And I think their offensive coordinator is going to end up getting fired because they are not going to average.
Dad's the coach. It's Dad's the head coach.
I know, but it's in his contract that he has to put up 25 points a game. No, I don't think he does that.
Well, I didn't even really consider them when I was thinking of the riser teams. I almost said what I had the segment named right there.
Were you gonna put them as a riser team?
I was thinking about it. Now what's concerning to me is, and yes, we know Cade McNamara was nothing special at Michigan. He was a good solid game manager quarterback, but we all thought he was going to be the guy. Well, I at least thought he was going to be the guy Iowa.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by we.
He was benched in this game. Now, whether that was because they were losing by a lot or because of his play, either one could be a good determinant for his benching. But the guy they put in wasn't good either. But their schedule is just not good, and they've got a good defense. But Penn State's a good team, and you have them at number 1, I think, for a reason.
I do.
So they're a really good team, and I think I will end up bouncing back. But yeah, it doesn't look good for them at all. And I think another team that I'm going to put on here for the that's pretty obvious is Colorado got drummed last week. And what I didn't like to see is obviously they were talking a ton of crap before the game, stomping on the Oregon logo. And you could tell it got Dan Lanning fired up. Dan Lanning is your guy. You love Dan Lanning. A lot of Alabama fans want Dan Lanning. I've been hearing Dan Lanning all week.
It's him.
But he had his team fired up and ready to go, and boy, they did not disappoint. So, and I've been telling you, I think Oregon's the best team in the Pac-12. I think they win that conference. Great conference. But Colorado, they're not a very physical team. I think what people have been saying about Ohio State is what's true for Colorado at this point in time. And it's really not Deion's fault. It's just he doesn't have the guys in there that he wants yet that can compete at a level with an Oregon team. But it did the road again, just kind of like we were just talking about with Auburn. The road does not get easier for them. USC still to play. Do they play Washington this year? I don't know if they do. I know they play UCLA and Utah, but I don't know if they play Washington. So we'll have to see. But it's not getting any easier for Colorado.
Luckily for them, they do not play Washington. They play Washington State, USC, and Utah, and UCLA, and Oregon State. they have a hard schedule.
Oh gosh, they may lose all those games, but yeah. I still think even the 3 wins and the start Deion's had, it's been a success so far for sure. But it could be really bad.
Yeah, my next team. Speaking of hard schedules, I have Notre Dame as an uh-oh team. It's a different type of uh-oh where, if you're looking at Iowa, if you're looking at Auburn, it's like, uh-oh, y'all suck. They're bad. Notre Dame, it's not like that. For me, it's Notre Dame, uh-oh, we got to win here on out, and we play a hard schedule. So can we do it? Because, they don't play a conference championship. So they only have 12 games to do it. So they got to go 11-1. And they still got to, like I said, play USC, Duke, and Clemson. And all 3 of those games are losable games as a Notre Dame player. So to me, it's can we do this? Can we pull out the win? I think Marcus Freeman's going to get his team in a good spot. But like I said, like we've both said this whole season, they just don't have the weapons on the outside. And that's what you're going to need to beat, quality opponents, especially in Clemson, because Clemson has the roster to do it. Whereas USC, I don't think you're really going to struggle to move the ball. You're going to have to stop their offense, and I think their defense can do that. And with Duke, they don't really have the athletes either. So honestly, my game comes against Clemson, because that's where I think that's going to be made the most known.
And speaking of Clemson, they're going to be next to my O list, but I do want to touch something on Notre Dame real quick. And this year's last year, the 14 playoff, right? Next year we'll transition to the 12 team. And I think in any other year, Notre Dame is going to be completely fine if they went out to go to a 12 team playoff. But with the 14 playoff and conference titles being so valued, over the course of the season, I think even if they win out, I think they're going to have to win convincingly in a couple of those tough games just to be maybe even the 4th team. I mean, Ohio State was their biggest opportunity to really put themselves on the map, and they fell just short. And I mean, a few bounce the ball plays here or there, they could have won that game. So it's tough for Notre Dame. I do think they'll win out. I really do think they'll win out, but they don't control their own destiny in terms of getting to the playoff. Stuff is going to have to happen for them to get in the playoff. And we'll see what happens towards the end of the year. But again, I think the last team we can talk about, and I think both of us can agree, Clemson, obviously 2 losses already. Their season, pretty much playoff hopes are gone. ACC title hopes, I guess, still hanging on by a thread, but definitely not what Dabo thought he would have this year to start the year. I mean, 2-2. I never would have thought Clemson would have started 2-2. 3-1, sure. 2-2, no. So definitely, and this is their second time being on the uh-oh list in just 3 weeks. So not good for So not good for Clemson.
And leading into our best bets.
No, not best. Just bet.
Sorry. No, I'm feeling it this week. I'm calling it best bets. I'm going 4 for 4 this week. Book it. Leading into that, I got Clemson -6.5 against Syracuse. I know we just had them on the uh-oh section, but both of us also had them as a riser team. I think they're not playing as well as they will. And Syracuse, a team that is also overrated. Some people are putting them in their top 25, and I don't understand that. They almost lost to Army. They looked horrendous last week. Garrett Schrader, not good. There's a reason he transferred out of Mississippi State. Not good at all. I think Clemson wins by 14-17. I think they have something to prove. Syracuse always a team that gives them problems. But I think coming off these 2 losses and already being out of national championship contender, they're kind of playing from where South Carolina is playing from, just a spoiler team. And obviously, you're not really spoiling anything against Syracuse. They are 4-0, but they're not going to end at 12-0. But they're playing from behind now. And so I think they got a little bit of fire underneath them.
I think that's kind of been the theme of our show today. Is we talked about a bunch of teams that have lost games that are going to have a big test when they come back and win and make a statement. I definitely think Clemson falls in that category, and I think they'll get it done. I agree with you. I think they cover the 6.5, and I think they win. So good pick. We're going to stay with another team that was just on the uh-oh list. Notre Dame versus Duke. On the road, Notre Dame's a 4-point favorite. I am hammering the Notre Dame over, or the Notre Dame to cover this game. I think Notre Dame wins this game by about 14. So I'm very confident in the Fighting Irish. I've got Notre Dame covering the 4. I think it's actually at 5.5 now. Still very confident in the 5.5. Notre Dame is going to cover.
This is why we say it's a bet section. Because why is this a best bet, Sutton? This is not a best bet. This is a pretty tough game. We both have Notre Dame.
I don't think it is at all. I think Notre Dame is going to prove that they are the much superior team.
I do think Notre Dame covers. I think it's closer than 14. I think it's more about 7 to 10, but I do have them covering. I'm scared. My other 2 games are both SEC games. Moving to my favorite conference, of course. LSU minus 2.5 versus Ole Miss. You probably don't think this is the best bet. I think it is. I don't think Ole Miss is that great of a team. They're Brink top 25. They're obviously number 3 in the West, but the West is very shaky this year. They have been the last few years. And I'm not a big fan of Jackson Dart, like I said. I think LSU finds their stride, finds their identity on offense this week. And they put up over 40 against this Ole Miss team, against their bad defense. And I think their defense finds a few stops. Like you said, front 7, very scary, and Harold Perkins and Mason Smith. And, I think the biggest thing are those DBs. And going up against a pretty good pass attack in Ole Miss just schematically, I think they can get some things done, make him throw some interceptions because, last week we saw his interception against Alabama. He just chucked it up. I don't really know why. I think it was on first down. So I think he does that more a little bit this week, feeling like he has to go win the game. So LSU minus 2.5.
I would definitely wouldn't put it as a best bet, but I will agree with you. I do think LSU wins and covers the 2.5. And we'll stay in the state of Mississippi. Alabama versus Mississippi State, the 14.5 with Alabama right now. I'm going Alabama to cover. I felt good about their Ole Miss line last week. It covered. Feel really good about this one as well. I think Alabama will win this game by about 21, maybe more. So definitely going to go Alabama to cover over Mississippi State. I think Alabama's a better team than LSU, and LSU went in there and beat them by 28. So I think it's I wouldn't say pretty simple, but I do think Alabama will cover this and win this game.
Yeah. I would say this is the best bet. If this was a first half line, though, I would say it's so scary. First half could go any which way direction.
Yeah.
Mississippi State could be leading by 10. Alabama could be leading by 10. It could be tied. But I'm going to agree with you. I have Alabama covering at the end. Jalen Milroe is going to get it done. Mississippi State, not a good team at all. They're not going to struggle in the second half, in my opinion. Keeping it with.
You have another game?
I got one more.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. I was going to do LSU, Ole Miss, or Missouri Vandy, but I wanted to do both. I have Missouri minus 13.5. I think Brady Cook is really good. I think he's a top 3 QB in the SEC. Maybe a hot take. I think he's really good. If he was on any other team, he would be praised, probably be going to New York. But he's going to be able to lead this Missouri team against a bad Vandy team. I think it's funny saying that. Vandy's always bad, but we thought they were going to be something going into this year. I did, at least. Not a top 25 team, not vying to win the East, but I thought they were going to be a Brink bowl game team, and they're just not. They'll struggle to get 3-4 wins. I think Missouri's going to go into Nashville and win handily by about 28, and so I think this is a lock.
Definitely can get behind that. I definitely like that line. My lock of the week, I should have mentioned, was the Notre Dame game. I do think my lock of the week is them covering. But I definitely could get behind that. I feel so bad for AJ Swan and Will Shepherd. Man, they're the 2 horses of that team, and everybody else is ponies. It's pretty rough over there in Nashville. But my final game, I went with them last week again. So I went with 2 teams last week, again this week, to cover both of their games. Maryland, the Maryland Terrapins hosting the Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana looked awful last week against a group of 5 team. Looked okay against Ohio State, but it's a 14-point spread. I've got Maryland covering and winning this game by about 21. So you can go Maryland Terrapins over Indiana at home, 14-point spread. But again, Notre Dame was my lock. So you got any players?
Yeah, I'll agree with you there with Maryland. Indiana, not a good team. Maryland, pretty good team. I think they cover pretty easily, probably by about 24. I got 2 player props. Let's go. Okay, I'll save my interesting one for last. I'm gonna go Caleb Williams, 353.5 yards. Hammer the over. I know that's a lot of yards, but it's because I think this game is gonna be a game. And like you said, I think Marshawn Lloyd is gonna have a pretty good game, but USC does not win the game in the trenches. They might be getting Marshawn Lloyd the ball, but Caleb Williams is going to be able to throw it, and he's going to be able to throw it really effectively and for a lot of yards. I think he goes potentially over 400. And I know this is a lot, 353, but this Colorado defense sucks, and this USC defense sucks, and so it is going to be a shootout. And in a shootout, I love the USC Trojans, especially with Caleb Williams.
Well, you're going to absolutely love my player props. I'll go ahead and give you two of mine since you only have two. Two of them are from your two favorite teams. We'll start off with your favorite team in Corvallis. DJU.
Oh yeah. Actually, one of my favorite teams.
Over 203.5 passing yards over Utah. Only 203.5 over Utah. I know you thought Utah defense is really good, but I think the balance of the Oregon State offense really helps out. UCLA's offense really isn't balanced. It's very pass heavy. So I think the balance really helps out DJU, and he's going to surpass the 203.5 against Utah, because I do think there'll be a little bit more scoring in this game than people think. I'm thinking more of like a 24-21 finish with Oregon State winning, but I do think 203.5 is pretty feasible for DJU to get, and I do think he'll get it. And then your favorite team, the Georgia Bulldogs, I've got Carson Beck at 252.5 over against Auburn. Yeah, Auburn's. We talked about this. Auburn's defense is not very good. Georgia, it's no question what they want to do on offense. They want to throw the football. Brock Bowers is going to get involved a lot this week. And you know what I predict? Dominic Levitt's going to have a breakout week this week in Auburn.
Yes, sir.
I think he's going to have good. I hate to gas up the Dogs, but I'll gas them up any day they play Auburn. But Dominic Levitt, I think he does kind of break out this week. I'm gonna say like 7 catches for 115 yards. How about it?
Ooh. He had a great game against Auburn last year. And interesting to note, I forgot to say it earlier, Ladd McConkey back at practice is not going to be full go during the game. I want that to be known. Will not be full go, but might get some reps, which is huge because he's dealing with a back injury. Those are always day-to-day. He hasn't practiced a single game or a single time this year outside of this week. So I think he will get in there on about 5 snaps, and maybe he's just run blocking, maybe he just runs a go route, but gonna be great to see 84 out there on the field again. Dom Lovett, I like the prediction. Things have not been chemistry wise great between him and Beck, but I think they can get it done this week. And when you have to lean on your weapons, I think they're going to be able to lean on him. I like him. I'm hammering the over for that game. With DJU, I don't know. I was looking at it and I was potentially wanting to bet the under just because I know how good that Utah defense is. I think I'm going to go over because they're going to have to rely on him to win. I think Utah's defense is really good, and they're going to rely on trying to stop the run.
Yeah.
And so DJU is going to take it into his own hands. And with that game being played in Corvallis, I think they win. I think DJU covers and they win. I'll go do what?
Good pick.
I'll go over in both those games. And now my interesting one, where it's definitely a trap. Forget what I said about going 5-5. This game is going to be the one, or this player prop is going to be the one that doesn't hit. Graham Mertz minus 7.5 rushing yards. I'm going over. I saw the negative and I was like, I have to go with it.
Oh man.
Maybe I didn't even do any research into it. I didn't look at how he performed against his prior rushing stats. So maybe I could be dead wrong on this. I just feel like, and I know sacks go into it, but there's no way he has minus 7.5. No way he has more than minus 8.
Jake, if the line is being set in the negatives,
dude, I know.
Like a rule. If the line is being set in the negatives for rushing yards, do not touch it. Do not even try to touch it. That's insane. I will not be backing that up. He is going to have under negative 7.5 yards rushing. I think he's going to have like negative 11 probably. I think he's going to get sacked a couple times.
Let's look at his game log. He has 0, -3, 8, -29. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. You go.
Hey, three of those are covering though. The one that isn't is Utah, and this Kentucky defense is not nearly as bad as, or not nearly as good as Utah's. I probably said that wrong, but
let's see.
Yeah, hammer the over. He's going for -2 yards.
I was about to say, would you think he will get positive rushing yards?
No, probably not. Probably not.
Okay, well, my last one, and one that we just talked about this guy. I kind of feel good about it. Max Johnson, 244.5 passing yards against Arkansas. I'm going to go over. Arkansas's secondary is the worst secondary in the SEC. It has been since Sam Pittman's been there. It's been bad. I mean, it is not a good secondary. So I think Max Johnson throws for probably 280 against them. So I'm going to go over Max Johnson 244.5. I don't really even think it has anything to do with Texas A&M. I just think it has A&M. We know they've got talent in that receiver room, and we know Arkansas doesn't have talent in the secondary. And I think that's kind of a key here. And I think Texas A&M is going to want to show the country, hey, Max Johnson can play some football. And after the whole Connor Wegman injury, we saw it last week. He did. So he played pretty well against Auburn. I know it's Auburn, but Auburn's got a better secondary than Arkansas does. So I think Max Johnson does get the over 244.5.
I know their defense isn't performing well. Their DBs aren't performing well, but they are a little bit of talent. Dwight McLaughlin, one of their cornerbacks, he was coming in as the top 10 cornerback in the nation. I don't know why, but people had him slotted there. I know PFF did. I think they had him at 8 coming in as in college football. And then they also have Jaheim Singletary, a former 5-star who transferred from Georgia last year after his freshman year, playing on the field. So he's getting his first snaps because he didn't get any last year. So, I mean, they have some talent there. I like it, though. I'm going to go over. I don't like betting the under. But Max Johnson, like I said, I don't think they really lose anything between Connor Wegman and Max Johnson. Texas A&M, not going to be good, but, they're going to rely on Max Johnson to get the ball around. Going to get it to his brother, too. That was cool to see. They're both from Athens, Oconee County. Jake Johnson got a touchdown reception from Max Johnson, so that was cool. Maybe hit him for another 1 or 2 this game.
Yeah, another thing I think about the Arkansas defense is they were the worst SEC secondary statistically last year, and they had Jalen Catalon, who's now at Texas.
Yeah,
and is a difference maker for that Texas defense, and he was at Arkansas. So that's just another thing there. I'm pretty – if my lock of the week wasn't the Notre Dame pick, that might actually be my lock of the week. So – feeling really confident about those two in particular. But want to close this out, Jake? I think it was pretty successful.
Yeah, no, it was a great episode. Looking forward to week 5. That is crazy. We're almost halfway through. That's so sad. That's so sad. I love college football. Love getting to discuss it with you. So everyone, go like and subscribe. Tell your friends about us. Pass the show along. We're 13 episodes in. 14 episodes coming soon.
Yeah, Get it, baby. I've enjoyed it. Roll Tide.
So long, go Dogs, and I'll see you in Auburn.